Chapter 253. The arrival of Duo Kang and the other two great saint masters gave the Kai clan's patriarch, Kai Heir, a boost of confidence. He lightly smiled and said, "Young Master Xia, please wait for a moment. I will immediately send someone to inform Commander Jianqin." In this small wake city, no one has the qualifications to make our Xia clan wait. Uncle Lu, teach these arrogant people a lesson. Young Master Xia said from within the carriage. A middle-aged man sitting on a Class 2 magical beast's mount had a fierce look in his eyes. He leapt off the mount and quickly crossed 10 meters in the air to arrive in front of Kai Heir. His two legs continuously kicked towards Kai Heir's head. Kai Heir coldly snorted. A surge of saint force gathered in his fists and violently punched out. Every punch collided with the middle-aged man's kicks. Pung, ping, ping. With a few muffled sounds, Kai Heir and the middle-aged man exchanged over 10 blows. When the middle-aged man landed on the ground, Kai Heir couldn't help but take a few steps back. His fists were already red. On the other hand, the middle-aged man was still calm and composed. Both of them had the strength of a great saint master, but the difference was that the middle-aged man had already reached the peak of the great saint master level. He was stronger than Kai Heir by an entire level. Both of his feet landed on the ground. The middle-aged man glared at Kai Heir and sneered, "A mere Kai clan dares to not put our Xia clan in your eyes. Today, I'll teach you a lesson." As he spoke, blue saint force surged out from the middle-aged man's right hand, rapidly condensing into a blue whip that was as thick as a thumb. The whip shimmered with light as visible ripples of water flowed through it. Water attributes saint force. Seeing the middle-aged man's whip, whether it was Kai Heir or Duo Kang, they were all shocked. The middle-aged man actually had water attribute saint force. People with this attribute were extremely rare in Wake City. The middle-aged man waved his whip. The whip struck the air, creating a clear pa sound. It formed a blurry blue image as it lashed towards Kai Heir. Furthermore, the blue ripples on the whip's surface left behind a blue ripple that confused everyone's eyes. It made it even harder for them to follow the whip's trajectory. Facing a peak great saint master, Kai didn't dare to be careless. He immediately took out a large sword and slashed at the whip with surging saint force. The whip was very soft. As soon as it came into contact with Kai's great sword, it coiled around the great sword like a nimble viper and finally tightened. Kai's expression changed slightly when his saint weapon was restricted. With a low roar, surging saint force surged out from his sword, bringing the whip wrapped around the sword to slash at the middle-aged man. The middle-aged man sneered. In the next moment, the soft whip immediately turned into an incomparably hard iron rope. Under the middle-aged man's control, the iron rope actually forcibly restrained Kai's large sword in midair. Kai swung his great sword a few times, but unfortunately, the great sword was bound in the air by the iron rope that suddenly became incomparably hard. He couldn't move it at all. With his saint weapon suppressed, Kai was forced into an extremely passive position. Humph! The Xia clan is really arrogant. Standing to the side, Duo Kang coldly snorted. A large sword suddenly appeared in his right hand and he swung it at the middle-aged man with the whip. The middle-aged man revealed a disdainful smile and withdrew his whip. With a wave of his arm, the whip once again turned into an illusion and lashed at Duo Kang's great sword. This time, the middle-aged man didn't use the whip to bind Duo Kang's great sword. Instead, he turned the whip into an iron rod that was countless times harder than steel and ruthlessly struck the side of Duo Kang's great sword. Clang! With the sound of metal clashing, Duo Kang's great sword was immediately knocked off course. His attack was easily neutralized by the middle-aged man's seemingly casual strike. Duo Kang's expression darkened. His gaze quickly swept past Charles and Qingfeng. He said in a low voice, "He's very strong. Let's attack together." The middle-aged man from the Xia clan had water attribute saint force and was also a peak great saint master. His strength wasn't something that Duo Kang could deal with. Qingfeng and Charles didn't hesitate at all. They immediately took out their own saint weapons and rushed towards the middle-aged man with Duo Kang. Charles's saint weapon was a two-handed greatsword. It was fierce and domineering. With a wave of the great sword, there was an ear-piercing sound. Qingfeng's saint weapon was a 3-meter-long spear. As the spear moved, it constantly left behind silvery white afterimages in the air. It was like a dragon, but also like a lurking poisonous snake. It appeared and disappeared unpredictably, always able to take advantage of the opponent's unpreparedness to attack fiercely. The middle-aged man was extremely strong. He didn't seem to be at a disadvantage at all when fighting Duo Kong and the other two great saint masters alone. The whip in his hand had many transformations, and in his hands, it was like an extremely elastic rubber. At times, it was as hard as steel that had been tempered thousands of times. The strange and unpredictable changes made it difficult to defend against. As the whip collided with Duo Kong and the other two saint weapons, the sounds of metal clanging continuously rang out. The crisp sound spread throughout the Kai clan's courtyard. Within the Kai clan, more and more guards and members of the Raging Flame mercenaries heard the commotion and hurried over. However, when the members of the Raging Flame mercenaries saw Duo Kong and the other two fighting, they all took out their own saint weapons and prepared for battle. At this moment, two figures shot over from the distance. The other two great saint masters of the Raging Flame mercenaries had also heard the commotion and hurried over. The two of them didn't waste any time and immediately joined Duo Kong and the other two's group. The 5 of them gathered together to fight against the middle-aged man from the Xia clan. There was no need to ask about the current situation. I didn't think that the Kai clan would have so many hidden experts. 5 great saint masters, this is not a weak force in Wake City, young Master Xia slowly said from within the carriage. Young Master, you don't know, but these 5 great saint masters all led mercenary groups that were not weak. However, ever since Genshin appeared, the 5 of them all disbanded their mercenary groups and joined the Raging Flame mercenaries. The leader of this Raging Flame mercenaries is none other than Genshin. In addition, it is said that even the Kai clan's patriarch and Duo Air clan's patriarch have joined the Raging Flame mercenaries. A young man respectfully said from beside the carriage. Oh, so there's something like this. Looks like this Genshin really isn't simple. I heard that he's only in his 20s. To have this kind of ability at such a young age, even this young master can't help but admire him. Young Master Xia lightly laughed as he sat in the carriage. Within the Kai clan, the middle-aged man from the Xia clan finally felt an enormous pressure from the combined attacks of the 5 great saint masters. Right now, his face was extremely serious and he was no longer as indifferent as before. Even though he had the strength of a peak great saint master, as well as water-attributed saint force, and his battle strength could be said to be at the peak of great saint masters, the 5 people in front of him were not weak either. There were 3 mid-level great saint masters and 2 high-level great saint masters. This kind of formation was already enough to pose a great threat to him. Kyle stood to the side and did not participate in the battle. This was because the 5 people of the Raging Flame mercenaries already had experience cooperating with each other. Even though their cooperation could not be said to be flawless, it could still be said to be orderly. If he were to participate, he would definitely break the tacit understanding between the 5 of them. After the 6 of them clashed for a while, the middle-aged man from the Xia clan was gradually at a disadvantage. At this moment, a fierce light flashed through the middle-aged man's eyes. He angrily yelled, "I'll let you see the power of my battle technique. Waterline flow." Powerful water-attributed saint force rose from the whip, and the whip in the middle-aged man's hand began to dance wildly. The space around him became densely packed with whips that were difficult to see with the naked eye. Countless finger-thick, light blue water swords appeared in the whips that filled the air. There were tens of thousands of them, and they all shot towards Duo Kang's group of 5. Duo Kang's group of 5 roared angrily. Surging saint force burst out of their bodies, forming a barrier that enveloped their entire bodies. When the tens of thousands of water swords landed on the barrier around Duo Kang's group of 5, the barrier immediately began to violently ripple. Fortunately, the water swords were not very powerful, and the barrier of a great saint master was enough to block them. 10,000 rivers mountains. The middle-aged man roared again. The whip in his hand emitted light blue water ripples, and as if it had turned into a dragon, It lashed towards Duo Kang's group of 5 with lightning speed. Duo Kang's group of 5 were fearless. They all waved their saint weapons at the same time to cut down the whip. The whip seemed small, but this time, it was as if it had transformed into a mountain. It had the power of 10,000 caddies. As soon as it collided with the saint weapons of Duo Kang's group of 5, there was a loud bang. The powerful force shook their arms, and they felt as if their bones were about to shatter. The hands holding the saint weapons involuntarily drooped down, and they staggered back a few steps. However, the whip did not slow down at all. It viciously struck the chests of the 5 people. Pa! With a crisp sound, the clothes on the chests of Duo Kang's group of 5 instantly turned into powder. Bright red blood splattered everywhere. The 5 of them were directly sent flying by the whip. They finally landed heavily on the ground 5 meters away, and it was difficult for them to get up. Duo Kang's group of 5, who had originally thought that victory was in sight, had completely changed the situation because of the appearance of the battle technique. From this, one could see how terrifying the power of the battle technique was. The middle-aged man stared coldly at Duo Kang's group of 5, who were lying 5 meters away. He said coldly, "To be able to force me to use my battle technique, you should feel proud even if you die. Today, I will break your legs to vent my anger." The middle-aged man raised the whip again. Just as he was about to strike again, a loud shout suddenly rang out. "Stop!" The voice was filled with unconcealable anger. It was almost a roar. Hearing this, the middle-aged man from the Xia family subconsciously stopped what he was doing and turned to look at the person who had spoken. The person who had spoken was a young man of about 20 years of age. The young man was dressed in cheap white cotton clothes and his long hair was casually draped over his shoulders. Although his attire was simple, it still could not hide the young man's handsome face. His skin was as white as mutton fat, and it was hard to believe that such a complexion that even women would be jealous of would appear on a man's body. His exquisite facial features were flawless, and no one doubted that this face was definitely the killer of all the young ladies in the world. Xianxia had been practicing the body refining chapter of the purple-green sword technique since he was young. He had strengthened every part of his body from the most fundamental cells. He did not deliberately change his body. Everything developed naturally. Therefore, whether it was his body or his appearance, because of the body refining chapter of the purple-green sword technique, they began to develop towards the most perfect state step by step. Therefore, since he was young, his appearance had been especially handsome. Moreover, since he grew up, as his body continued to improve and strengthen, his appearance also became better than before. "Who are you?" The middle-aged man from the Xia clan stared sharply at Xianxia and asked sternly. Chapter 254. Hearing this, the middle-aged man's expression changed. He couldn't help but take a good look at Xianxia. With a smile, he said, "So you are Xianxia. It seems that the rumors are true. You really do look to be in your 20s. Xianxia's gaze swept over Duo Kang's group of 5. When he saw the wounds on their chests, his expression became even more gloomy. In a deep voice, he said, "People of the Xia clan, why are you looking for me?" Xianxia's attitude caused the middle-aged man to frown. He then snorted and coldly said, "Xianxia, it is our Xia clan's first young master who is looking for you. Why aren't you greeting him?" At this moment, the curtain of the carriage flipped and a young man in a luxurious white robe slowly walked out from within the carriage. The young man had a slender figure and was around 27 or 28 years old. He had a dignified appearance and was handsome and unrestrained. He held an expensive folding fan in his hand and gently fanned it, giving him an elegant demeanor. "First young master. First young master." The young man clearly had a very high status in the Xia clan. When he appeared, the middle-aged men around the carriage all bowed respectfully. The young man didn't look sideways and directly walked into the Kai clan's courtyard. Behind him, there were several sturdy middle-aged men. Their fierce eyes scanned the surroundings. Their expressions were full of vigilance as they protected the young man's safety. The young man's gaze fell on Xianxia. His eyes carried a sharp look as he stared at Xianxia's handsome face. With a light smile, he said, "You are Xianxia? You are indeed a man of striking appearance." Jianshan's gaze swept over the middle-aged men beside the Xia clan's first young master. Their strength was clear at a glance. 3 great Saint Masters, 5 high-level Saint Masters, and a middle-aged man with a deep understanding of water attribute Saint Force. With such a lineup, there was no power in Wake City that could compare to it. Jianshan coldly snorted and said, "Young Master Xia, state your intentions." Young Master Xia chuckled, "You're indeed a straightforward person. All right, I won't beat around the bush and get straight to the point." Young Master Xia paused, and he immediately became rather stern. "Jianshan, I know you have 2 Class 5 monster cores. I've come this time specifically to buy them from you." "Sorry, I'm not selling Tier 5 monster cores." Jianshan rejected without any hesitation. He continued, "Jianshan, keeping a Class 5 monster core with you will only bring you trouble, or even cause you to lose your life. Although you are the leader of a mercenary group and have a few great Saint Masters under you, it is still not enough to protect a Class 5 monster core. A Class 5 monster core can attract Earth Saint Masters to fight over it. You simply do not have the ability to possess it. It's better if you sell it to us. This way, not only can you obtain a large sum of money, you can also avoid some trouble." "Sorry, I've already said that I'm not selling Tier 5 monster cores to anyone." Jianshan still said the same sentence, his expression extremely cold. Young Master Xia's gaze turned cold, but he immediately hid it and smiled. "Jianshan, I'll give you 3 days to consider. After 3 days, I'll come here again. Of course, during this time, don't try to escape. Otherwise, it will only provoke the goodwill of our Xia family. You should know the consequences of that. Let's go." With that, young Master Xia turned and left. Seeing that the Xia family was about to leave, Jianshan's gaze immediately became sharp. He coldly snorted and shouted, "Wait!" Young Master Xia stopped and turned back to look at Jianshan with a smile. "What? Did you change your mind?" Jianshan stared at the middle-aged man who had injured Duo Kong and the other 4. He pointed at him and said, "They can leave, but you have to stay." Hearing this, young Master Xia's expression slightly changed, while a trace of surprise flashed through the middle-aged man's eyes. "Jianshan, what do you mean by this?" Young Master Xia had already sensed Jianshan's hostility, and his expression immediately became somewhat gloomy. In the small Wake City, no one dared to challenge the Xia family's authority. Jianshan's face revealed a trace of a cold smile. "Do you really think that this is your Xia family's backyard? That you can come and go as you please? Since you've injured my men, don't even think about leaving today." But young Master Xia fiercely slapped the fan in his hand, no longer able to maintain his calm and composure. He angrily said, "How dare you, Jianshan? Do you know who you're talking to?" Jianshan turned a deaf ear to young Master Xia's angry shouts, and only stared fiercely at the middle-aged man who had injured Duo Kong and the other 4. The middle-aged man seemed to be amused, and could not help but reveal a trace of a smile on his face. Even though he had previously heard that Jianshan was not weak, he was after all still too young. Furthermore, the middle-aged man had absolute confidence in his own strength, and he really did not put Jianshan in his eyes. "Jianshan, could it be that you want to punish me? I wonder, how exactly do you want to punish me?" The middle-aged man said with a smile, his tone full of disdain. Jianshan's face was expressionless, but his eyes were filled with murderous intent. He would never let go of those who provoked him. Furthermore, just now, if he had not appeared in time, Duo Kong and the other 4 would have suffered even more severe injuries. Furthermore, in front of so many brothers of the Blazing Flame mercenaries, he had to be firm in his actions. If he showed weakness, it would be hard to avoid repercussions. This was because even though the Blazing Flame mercenary strength was not weak, how many of them were dead set on following him? "Jianshan, you're courting death." Without waiting for the middle-aged man to speak, young Master Xia could not help but angrily shout. His expression had already become extremely ugly as he stared coldly at Jianshan, the intense killing intent in his eyes undisguised. Jianshan's words in front of him clearly showed that he did not put the Xia family in his eyes at all. How could young Master Xia endure this? Moreover, at this moment, The gazes of all the members of the Blazing Flame mercenaries were gathered on Jianchen, many of them secretly giving him a thumbs up. Jianchen's actions had moved many of them. Many of them had originally been subordinates of Duo Kong and the others. Although they appeared to be inferior to Duo Kong and the others on the surface, they were secretly a group of close friends who had gone through life and death together. Their relationship was as close as brothers, otherwise they would not have joined the Blazing Flame mercenaries with Duo Kong and the others. Now that Duo Kong and the others were being bullied, they were also incomparably furious. However, the strength of their opponent was not something they could deal with. Now, they had placed all their hopes of redeeming themselves on Jianchen. The middle-aged man laughed from extreme anger. He slowly crossed his arms in front of his chest and said, "Good. Jianchen, your courage is commendable. However, you have to see who you're talking to. Otherwise, you'll only be humiliating yourself. Since you want to kill me, then do it. Let me see if you're as strong as the rumors say." Uncle Lu, it looks like we don't need to spend money to buy the 2 fifth-step monster cores in Jianchen's hands. Young Master Xia sneered from the side. That's right, young master is right. Now we can save a lot of money. The middle-aged man called Uncle Lu laughed mischievously. Immediately after, the blue whip appeared in his hand once more. With a casual wave, the whip struck the air, creating a loud cracking sound. The corners of Jianchen's mouth curled up into a cold smile. Although his opponent was an expert of the water attribute, Jianchen still didn't put him in his eyes. With a slight sway of his body, Jianchen's silhouette left behind an afterimage as he rushed towards the middle-aged man. At the same time, the light wind sword appeared in his hand, bringing a sharp sword chi with it towards the middle-aged man's throat. With a flash of silver light, the light wind sword seemed to have transformed into a bolt of lightning, instantly crossing the distance between the two. Before the middle-aged man could react, the light wind sword was only a foot away from his throat. In front of so many members of the Raging Flame mercenary group, this battle had to be won beautifully, so Jianchen used his full strength from the very beginning. What fast speed! The middle-aged man's expression changed. His originally frivolous expression suddenly became serious. From this sword, he already knew that Jianchen wasn't easy to deal with. The middle-aged man quickly retreated. With a flick of his right hand, the whip was like a nimble snake, leaving an afterimage in the air as it coiled around the light wind sword in an attempt to bind it. However, he had underestimated the speed of the light wind sword. Just as the whip was about to wrap around the light wind sword, the light wind sword's speed suddenly increased by more than double. Facing such a fast sword, the middle-aged man had no way of defending or dodging. In the end, the light wind sword pierced through the middle-aged man's throat. Although the middle-aged man had the water attribute and had a natural advantage, in the eyes of Jianchen, this advantage was nothing. Even if he had a strong battle skill, he didn't have the opportunity to use it. The middle-aged man's eyes were wide open as he stared at Jianchen. He couldn't believe this result. With his strength, he couldn't even dodge a single strike from his opponent. Uncle Lu. Young Master Xia's expression suddenly changed. His face was filled with disbelief. He was very clear on Uncle Lu's strength. Even in the family, Uncle Lu's strength was ranked third. Unless he met an Earth Saint Master, no one would be able to defeat Uncle Lu in a one-on-one fight. But now, the incomparably powerful Uncle Lu had been killed by Jianchen in a single strike. This kind of result was something he couldn't believe. Protect the young master. With the middle-aged man killed, the Xia family's guards immediately became vigilant. They all protected the young master behind them as they quickly retreated to the door. Each of them had a serious expression on their faces as they stared at Jianchen. They were on high alert in order to prevent Jianchen from killing him again. I've said it before. This is not your Xia family's courtyard. You can come and go as you please. Men, surround them. Jianchen shouted. Yes, Captain. The brothers of the Raging Flame mercenaries all shouted in unison. They immediately blocked the entrance and surrounded young Master Xia's group. Chapter 255. Young Master Xia, you've come with such fanfare and injured so many of my men. Do you really think you can leave this place peacefully? Jianshan said with a fake smile, his tone extremely cold. You've already killed Uncle Lu. What more do you want? Young Master Xia glanced at the hundreds of burly men in the surroundings, and a rare trace of fear appeared on his face. He continued, My father is the current patriarch of the Xia clan, Jianshan. If you kill me, the entire Xia clan will hunt you down. Do you think I'm afraid? You should know that since I dared to kill your men, I'm not afraid of offending the Xia clan. Jianshan did not mind young Master Xia's threat and said calmly, Do. Young Master Xia's face became pale and he secretly regretted his actions. If he had known earlier that Jianshan was so difficult to deal with, he would not have dared to disrespect the Kai clan. At this moment, Kyle came to Jianshan's side and said softly, Captain, the Xia clan is very powerful and young Master Xia is the only son of the current patriarch. If you kill him, the Xia clan will definitely go crazy. How powerful is the Xia clan? Jianshan asked softly. This was the question he was most concerned about. Kyle whispered to Jianshan. It said that the Xia clan has 10 great saint masters on the surface. As for the previous patriarch, it said that 10 years ago, he was already an earth saint master. Not only does he possess water-attributed saint force, he also knows a powerful battle skill. He's extremely powerful. Jianshan nodded slightly. From young Master Xia's arrogant tone and words, he had already guessed that the Xia clan had at least an earth saint master supporting them. However, what he was concerned about was just how many earth saint masters the Xia clan had. Jianshan stared at young Master Xia and said, Young Master Xia, do you want to leave this place peacefully? Although Jianshan had the intention to let them go, his attitude was still very unyielding. Young Master Xia had no doubt that he wouldn't be able to leave this place safely today if he didn't eat his words. Even someone as powerful as Uncle Lu had been killed by Jianshan in one strike. Young Master Xia knew very well that with Jianshan's strength, he was not afraid of the Xia family's might. Jianshan, our Xia clan doesn't want the Class 5 Demon Corps anymore. As long as you let me go today, I can give you a large amount of money. Young Master Xia's eyes burned with a glimmer of hope. Although he looked noble on the outside, he had grown up in a sheltered environment and had always lived under the protection of his elders. He simply did not have the heroic spirit and fearless spirit of those mercenaries who had risked their lives for him. At this moment, in such a situation, it was already very difficult for him to maintain his composure. Jianshan's face revealed a trace of an evil smile. His eyes swept over young Master Xia's spatial belt and said, Young Master Xia, since you want to leave this place safely, then you should hand over your spatial belt. Young Master Xia's face changed slightly. His spatial belt contained all of his belongings. To hand it over just like that, he was very reluctant. Young Master Xia's eyes revealed a trace of struggle. In the end, he gritted his teeth and said, Fine, Jianshan, I will hand over my spatial belt to you. I hope you can keep your promise and let us leave this place safely. Of course. Jianshan smiled faintly and said with certainty. After that, young Master Xia took off his spatial belt with a pained expression and threw it to Jianshan. Then he said, We will take Uncle Lu's corpse with us. Jianshan didn't say anything. With a flick of his light wind sword, he took Uncle Lu's spatial belt and kicked the corpse towards young Master Xia's group. Immediately, 2 guards carefully took Uncle Lu's corpse and stared at Jianshan as they slowly left the Kai clan. The Xia clan's group hurriedly left without the slightest hesitation. Within the Kai clan's courtyard, the members of the Raging Flame mercenaries were all looking at Jianshan with incomparable excitement. Jianshan's move had won the hearts of many of the Raging Flame mercenaries. Kyle and the other 4 all came to Jianshan's side at the same time. Kyle's face was a bit serious as he said, Captain, now that we have completely offended the Xia clan, they will definitely not let this matter rest. It seems that we should also prepare to fight against the Xia clan. Jianshan faintly nodded. Captain, since we have already offended the Xia clan, then why don't we just kill them all? Since we have already offended them, wouldn't it be more convenient to kill them all? Moreover, the Xia clan will also lose a few great saint masters, greatly reducing their strength. Charles said with a face full of regret. Jianshan faintly shook his head and said, Although I have killed an expert of the Xia clan, my strength will definitely make the Xia clan fear me. If they fight me to the death, the Xia clan will definitely suffer heavy losses. I believe that the Xia clan will also consider whether it is worth it to pay such a price for a single person. Even if they are willing to sacrifice some of the clan's strength to fight me to the death, they will most likely need some time to prepare. However, young Master Xia is different. He is the only son of the current generation of the clan, so his status is extremely special. If I kill him now, the Xia clan will probably become the second Tianxiong clan, and they will immediately mobilize the entire clan to deal with us. Although we are not afraid, almost all of our brothers in the Raging Flame mercenaries are injured right now. Captain is wise. Hearing Genshin's words, Duo Kong and the other four all nodded their heads in agreement. Genshin took out a pouch of money from his spatial belt and said, "Here are 5,000 purple coins. Kyle, take this money and immediately go buy the best healing medicine. You must let the brothers recover as quickly as possible. The rest of the money can be divided among the brothers." Outside the gates of Wake City, 20 middle-aged men dressed in blue robes were riding Class 2 magical beasts as they madly rushed towards Wake City. The person in the lead was riding an expensive Class 3 magical beast. With one look, one could tell that he was not an ordinary person. This kind of lineup deterred many people on the road. Regardless of whether it was a merchant group or a mercenary group, they all made way for these people riding expensive magical beast mounts. Just as they were about to reach Wake City's entrance, suddenly, a group of carriages flying the Xia clan's flag rushed out of Wake City. Everyone's expression was not very good, and on the back of one of the Class 2 magical beasts was a continuously bleeding corpse. The appearance of the Xia clan's carriages caused the group of people dressed in blue robes to stop. I didn't think that the Xia clan would actually arrive before us. It seems that we are late. The middle-aged man in the lead who rode a Class 3 magical beast muttered. Soon after, his eyes suddenly narrowed and were filled with disbelief. How is this possible? Could it be that Wake City still has such an expert? Even Uncle Lu Zheng was killed. The middle-aged man muttered absent-mindedly. Martial Uncle, that is the Xia clan's carriages. I didn't think that the Xia clan would arrive so quickly. I think that Class 5 Magical Beast Core was most likely bought by the Xia clan. The middle-aged man slightly shook his head. His gaze was fixed on the corpse of the Xia clan's carriages, and he remained silent. Chapter 256. As he watched the Xia clan's convoy leave, the middle-aged man riding on a Class 3 magical beast shouted, "Let's go, into the city." More than 20 people wearing the same uniform rushed into the city. When the guards saw that these people were all riding expensive magic beast mounts, they knew that they must have a great background, so they didn't dare to stop them in the slightest. They allowed the group to enter Wake City without any hindrance. The middle-aged man riding on a Class 3 magical beast slowly walked along the wide road. His eyes casually swept across the people around him as he softly called out, "Junior Zhang." "Martial Uncle." A burly man walking beside the middle-aged man immediately controlled his magical beast mount to move in front of the middle-aged man and asked, "Martial Uncle, what's the matter?" "Junior Zhang, send a few people to find out when the Xia clan's convoy entered the city." The middle-aged man riding on the Class 3 magical beast slowly said with a dignified expression on his face. "Yes, Martial Uncle." The burly man did not ask any more questions and immediately called for the men riding Class 2 magical beasts behind him to leave and gather information. "Let's wait here for Junior Zhang and the rest to return." The middle-aged man controlled his Class 3 magical beast to stop at the side of the road and said to the men behind him, "We'll follow Martial Uncle's orders." Behind him, more than 10 people in tight clothes said to the middle-aged man at the same time. Soon after, the men riding Class 2 and Class 3 magical beasts waited patiently at the side of the road. Along the way, they attracted the attention of many passers-by, their faces full of curiosity. Very quickly, the people who had gone to inquire about the situation returned on their Class 2 magic beasts. The one called Junior Brother Zhang walked up to the middle-aged man and said in a low voice, "Martial Uncle, the situation has been investigated. The Xia clan arrived in Wake City less than an hour ago. As soon as they entered Wake City, they immediately headed towards the Kai clan. Not long after that, they hurriedly left. The middle-aged man frowned and muttered, Kai clan, it's just as I expected. Martial uncle, are we still going to the Kai clan? Junior brother Zhang said from the side. Although he looked like a boorish man, he was very meticulous. The middle-aged man shook his head slightly. He turned around and stared at the 20 or so people riding Class 2 magical beasts behind him. He said, let's go find an inn to stay in for the time being. Martial uncle, aren't we going straight to the Kai clan? As soon as the middle-aged man finished speaking, a doubtful voice came from behind him. The situation has changed. Let's find an inn to stay in first. After saying this, the middle-aged man rode his Class 3 magic beast forward. In a luxuriously decorated room with closed windows, a middle-aged man was sitting with two other middle-aged men of the same age as him. One of them was wearing a blue suit and had short hair that was about an inch long. He looked very capable. The other was a bald man with a sturdy figure. His pair of thick and muscular arms were exposed to the air. Martial uncle, may I know why you called us here? A middle-aged man in blue clothes asked. This Kai clan is not simple. Even Uncle Lu Zheng of the Xia clan is dead. It seems that the mission given to us by the sect master will be very difficult to complete. The middle-aged man said with a serious face. Martial uncle, on the way here, I've heard many rumors about Genshin. It said that he killed 3 Class 5 magical beasts. Although there were 2 Earth Saint Masters with the fire attribute present, for him to be able to participate in a battle with Class 5 magical beasts, his strength is definitely not weak. I think that Uncle Lu Zheng of the Xia clan was most likely killed by Genshin because in Wake City, only he has the strength to do so. The bald man said. The middle-aged man who was addressed as Martial Uncle nodded slightly and said, the mission this time is more difficult than I imagined. Uncle Lu Zheng of the Xia clan is about the same strength as me. I never thought that even he would die here. It seems that we need to pay a visit to this mysterious expert called Genshin. Let's not delay any longer. Martial uncle, why don't we go now? The middle-aged man's suggestion was quickly approved by the other 2. Alright. Following which, the 3 men left the inn at the same time. Riding their expensive magical beasts, they casually asked around for directions and headed straight for the Kai clan. Arriving at the main gate of the Kai clan, the 3 middle-aged men dismounted at the same time and walked up to one of the guards. They cupped their hands and said, Brother, we are from the magnificent Heaven sect. We have something to discuss with your patriarch. May I ask if you can go in and inform him? The middle-aged man did not reveal an overly arrogant expression and spoke in an amiable tone. All right, I'll go in and inform him. Please wait a moment. The guard did not hesitate and immediately ran in to inform the patriarch. The 3 middle-aged men waited quietly outside the door with a calm expression on their faces. In the Kai clan, Genshin, Kai Er, and He Duo Kong were in the main hall discussing how to deal with the Xia clan's arrival. Although they could not be sure if the Xia clan would make a big fuss over the death of the middle-aged man, they still had to be prepared in order to avoid being caught off guard. At this moment, a guard ran in from outside and said, reporting to the patriarch, there are 3 people outside who claim to be from the magnificent Heaven sect. They want to see the patriarch. What? The magnificent Heaven sect? Hearing this, Kai Er's expression changed slightly. He stared sharply at the guard and asked again, are there really only 3 of them? Yes, patriarch, there are only 3 of them. The guard bowed and replied. Looking at Kai Er's expression, Genshin frowned slightly and said, Kai Er, what kind of power is the magnificent Heaven sect? How strong are they? Leader, the magnificent Heaven sect is a sect. The sect's encampment is on a mountain more than 2,000 kilometers away from Wake City. Their exact strength is unknown, but they are not weaker than the Xia clan. In fact, they might even be stronger than the Xia clan. Kai Er said in a low voice, his face solemn. Genshin tapped his head, feeling a headache coming on. He muttered, the temptation of a level 5 demon core is really great. We just defeated the Xia clan, But who would have thought that in such a short time, another sect that is even stronger than the Xia clan would appear? Leader, the magnificent Heaven sect is obviously here for the level 5 demon core. How do you think we should deal with this? Should we deal with it the same way we dealt with the Xia clan? Mo Tian asked. Jianshan shook his head lightly and said, let's go out and take a look first. Although I am not afraid of trouble, I still have to think of the brothers in the group. Unless we have no other choice, we should avoid offending powerful factions. Soon after, Jianshan led Duo Kong and the others towards the Kai clan's main gate. From afar, Jianshan saw 3 middle-aged men in tight robes standing straight outside the gate. One was at the peak of the Great Saint Master level, while the other 2 were mid-level Great Saint Masters. I am Jianshan. May I know if the 3 of you are from the Magnificent Heaven sect? Jianshan cupped his hands towards the 3 men as he arrived at the main gate. When the 3 middle-aged men's gazes landed on Jianshan's face, a trace of surprise appeared in their eyes. Following which, the man in the lead smiled and cupped his hands towards Jianshan. So this is Sir Jianshan. You are indeed as young as the rumors say. You are truly a hero from the younger generation. The 3 of us are from the Huayan sect. I am Qin Yun, and these 2 are my 2 junior brothers. Qin Yi. Qin Mu. Chapter 257. Seeing that the attitude of the 3 from the Magnificent sect was not bad and that they didn't want to cause trouble as soon as the Xia clan arrived, Jianshan secretly let out a sigh of relief. Now, he was no longer as fearless as before. Because of the Raging Flame mercenary group, Jianshan didn't want to offend too many powerful forces. Otherwise, it would bring disaster to the lives of his brothers in the Raging Flame mercenary group. After exchanging a few pleasantries with the 3 from the Magnificent sect, Jianshan invited them into the Kai clan. In the small room that Jianshan lived in, Jianshan and the 3 from the Magnificent sect sat in front of a stone table. His gaze slowly swept across the faces of the 3 and he smiled. I heard that the Magnificent sect is more than 2,000 kilometers away from Wake City. I wonder why the 3 of you have come all the way here. Jianshan didn't waste time on nonsense and went straight to the point. Hearing this, the 3 of them looked at each other and hesitated for a moment. Then, Qin Yun opened his mouth and said, to be honest, a few days ago, our Magnificent sect found out that Sir Jianshan has a rank 5 monster core. Our Magnificent sect needs a rank 5 monster core very much, so our sect leader specially ordered me to come to Wake City to see if we can buy the rank 5 monster core. Jianshan's face showed a trace of regret. He said, I'm sorry, although I have a rank 5 monster core, I don't plan on selling it because I need it very much myself. Jianshan's cultivation required a large amount of monster cores, and the recovery of the Azure Sword spirits also required a large amount of energy. Although he had a lot of rank 3 and rank 4 monster cores, they weren't enough for him to squander for a long time. A rank 5 monster core was equivalent to 100 rank 4 monster cores to Jianshan. It was even more powerful than 100 rank 4 monster cores. Therefore, Jianshan definitely wouldn't sell a rank 5 monster core. Moreover, he didn't lack money at the moment. Although a rank 5 monster core could be bought in a bustling city where experts gathered, in this remote Wake City, a rank 5 monster core was very precious. Moreover, even if one could buy a rank 5 monster core in a big city, it was very expensive. Hearing Jianshan's words, Qin Yun and the other 2 people's faces were filled with disappointment even though they had already expected this result. Level 5 monster cores were extremely precious. Even with the influence of the Huatian sect, it was very difficult to obtain one. If one went to a big city to buy one, it would be possible to buy one, but at the same time, the risk was extremely high. If the news was leaked, it would be hard to avoid encountering bandits along the way. In the Tianyuan continent that was filled with strife, it was not as if there were no Earth Saint Master bandits. In some large bandit groups, there were even Heaven Saint Masters who were at the pinnacle. After chatting with Jianshan for a while, Qin Yun and the other 2 people hurriedly left. When they returned to the inn, Qin Yun and the other 2 people gathered in a room with the windows tightly shut. Martial uncle, this Jianshan really didn't want to sell the rank 5 monster core. What should we do now? The bald man, Qin Mu asked. Qing Yun frowned and said, "This Jianshan person may look young, but based on my many years of experience, I can tell that he is not simple. He is very mysterious and his strength is very shocking. Although I can't accurately estimate his strength, the fact that he was able to participate in a battle with a rank 5 magical beast is enough to prove that his strength is not ordinary. I estimate that he is even stronger than me. Uncle Lu Zheng of the Xia clan must have been killed by him." "Martial uncle, are we going to just go back like this?" The one who spoke was Qing Shan, his face full of unwillingness. The middle-aged man was silent for a while before saying, "To have such strength at such a young age, the only thing I am worried about is that Jianshan must have an extremely powerful background. We cannot act rashly on this matter. I must personally return to the Tianhua sect and report this matter to the sect leader and ask him to make a decision. Qing Yun, Qing Shan, the two of you will stay in Wake City for the time being. Keep an eye on the recent movements in Wake City, but remember, do not go to the Kai clan to cause trouble. Everything will be discussed when I return." "Yes, martial uncle." The two of them replied at the same time. Although the three of them looked to be about the same age, Qing Yun's position in the hearts of Qing Mu and Qing Shan was clearly not ordinary. Qing Yun did not hesitate for a moment. After giving his instructions, he immediately rode his rank 3 magical beast at full speed towards the Tianhua sect 2,000 miles away. In the Kai clan, Jianshan was temporarily staying in a small independent courtyard. Ever since Qing Yun and the other two left, Jianshan had been sitting in front of a stone table with his head lowered, deep in thought. The temptation of a rank 5 monster core had already exceeded Jianshan's expectations. He did not think that for a rank 5 monster core, even a powerful organization with an Earth Saint Master would not hesitate to travel thousands of miles just to purchase a rank 5 monster core. Jianshan clearly knew that if it were not for his strength that made them fear him, the rank 5 monster core in his hands would have already been taken by someone else. Today, he had first sent away the Xia clan. Not long after, the Huatian sect, whose strength was not any weaker than the Xia clan, had arrived. Both of these clans were not to be trifled with. Both of them had Earth Saint Masters. Who could say for sure whether or not there would be even stronger clans or even more clans looking for him in the future? Earth Saint Masters were already enough to pose a threat to Jianshan. From the previous battle with the 3 rank 5 magical beasts, Jianshan had already vaguely guessed that if he were to encounter a rank 1 or rank 2 Earth Saint Master, he should be able to deal with them with the Azulite Sword Qi. If he were to encounter a rank 5 or rank 6 Earth Saint Master, his chances of survival would be very slim. The difference between Earth Saint Masters was also very large, which was why they were divided into rank 6. The difference between the rank 1 and rank 6 was like an insurmountable chasm. The Earth Saint Masters of the Xia clan and the Azulite sect were already enough to make Jianshan feel threatened, especially the Flame Mercenaries. They seemed to have a few great Saint Masters, but if they were to go up against those large clans, they would have no chance of victory. I need to use this time to increase my strength. Jianshan made up his mind and immediately returned to his room. Sitting cross-legged on his bed, Jianshan held a Class 4 monster core in each hand as he thought to himself. Ever since he broke through to Great Saint Master and communicated with the Azulite Sword Spirits, he understood that they were currently incomparably weak. They needed large amounts of energy to slowly recover, and the strength of the Azulite Sword Spirits was directly related to the strength of his Sword Qi. If he could let the weakened Azulite Sword Spirits recover some of their strength, then the Sword Qi he could borrow would be even more powerful. However, Jianshan did not dare guarantee that he would be able to let the Azulite Sword Spirits recover some of their strength. Right now, he had 2 methods to increase his own strength. The first was to directly channel all of his energy to the Azulite Sword Spirits so that they could recover as soon as possible and borrow their powerful Sword Qi. The second was to directly use the energy on himself to increase his own strength. However, if he followed the second method, then unless he reached the peak of Great Saint Master, he would not be able to threaten an Earth Saint Master. Chapter 258. Jianshan sat cross-legged on his bed as he continuously absorbed the energy from the 2 Class 4 monster cores in his hands. Ever since he had reached the Great Saint Master level, The rate at which he absorbed the energy from the monster cores was much faster than before. What surprised Genshin the most was that the awakened sword spirits no longer fought over the energy as fiercely as before. He could now absorb half of the energy from the monster cores, unlike before when he could only absorb 10% or less of the energy. The remaining 90% was snatched away by the sword spirits. The sword spirits already had their own consciousness and the ability to think independently. Although they couldn't communicate with others normally, they could use another method to communicate with Genshin's consciousness. They could use a mysterious method to convey their thoughts to Genshin. In the Kai clan, it wasn't just Genshin who was cultivating. Even the members of the Flame Mercenary group had taken out their monster cores and locked themselves in their rooms to cultivate. The appearance of the Xia clan and the Magnificent sect had caused the members of the Flame Mercenary group to feel a great deal of pressure. Although they had only joined the Flame Mercenary group for a few days and hadn't interacted with Genshin for long, Genshin's way of doing things had already gained the approval of many of the mercenaries. In the blink of an eye, it was already evening. Ever since the people of the Huayan sect had left, the Kai clan had been very peaceful. No one had come to disturb them. On a mountain 2,000 kilometers away from Wake City, in a dense forest shrouded in darkness, one could clearly see a large open space. A large number of buildings and pavilions stood tall in the darkness. The lights of the buildings were like fireflies, very obvious in the darkness. The Huatian sect was located in the Blue Wind Kingdom. Within the kingdom, it could be considered as one of the top forces. Since the establishment of the Huatian sect, it had been almost 100 years. After 100 years of development, the Huatian sect had begun to develop. There were more than 1,000 disciples in the sect. Among them, there were more than 50 great saint masters. It was the strongest force within 1,000 miles. In a secret room in this building, two middle-aged men in martial arts attire sat opposite each other. "Martial uncle, the situation is like this. I don't know what we should do," a middle-aged man said with a serious face. This person was Qing Yun. After returning to the Magnificent Sky sect, Qing Yun immediately reported the situation in Wake City to the sect leader of the Magnificent Sky sect. The middle-aged man in blue sitting opposite Qing Yun lowered his head in deep thought. He was the sect leader of the Huatian sect, Qing Tian. He was only 5 years older than Qing Yun. Although the two of them were not that old, Qing Tian's talent in cultivation was not something Qing Yun could compare to. A few years ago, Qing Tian had already broken through the bottleneck of the Great Saint Master and gloriously became an Earth Saint Master. With his talent, who knew how much his strength had increased after these few years? As for Qing Yun, he was still at the peak of the Great Saint Master level. Qing Tian frowned and thought for a moment before slowly saying, "Although a level 5 monster core is very precious, it is not priceless. In some large cities, level 5 monster cores are still relatively common. Since Genshin is not willing to sell it, then let's forget about this matter. We must not force him or do anything out of the ordinary. I have always felt that this Genshin's people are not simple. If we offend them, I'm afraid that it will cause trouble for our Magnificent Sky sect." "Senior, are you worried that Genshin has a powerful background?" Qing Yun's face became serious. Qing Tian nodded slightly and said, "Yes, this is exactly what I am worried about. However, regardless of whether this Genshin has a powerful background or not, just his talent in cultivation is shocking enough. To have such strength in his 20s, such a genius is rare even in the entire Tianyuan continent. If he is given a few more years, I'm afraid that he will become a peak expert of the Tianyuan continent. Right now, we have no enmity with him. For a level 5 monster core, it is not worth it for us to offend such a genius. Junior, you should return to Wake City tomorrow morning. If possible, do your best to befriend Genshin." Qing Yun nodded slightly and said, "Senior, I didn't think that you would have the same thoughts as me. It was because of this that I personally came to report this matter to you." Qing Tian smiled and looked at Qing Yun with a complicated gaze. He said, "Junior, your strength has already reached the peak of Great Saint Master. If you are given a level 5 monster core, I wonder if you have the confidence to break through to Earth Saint Master?" Hearing that, Qin Yun sighed and became dejected. He shook his head. Oh. Although Class 5 mana cores can help people break through to the Earth Saint Master level, I'm still not completely confident. Once I shatter my Saint weapon, it'll be very difficult for me to condense it again. Qin Yun paused when he reached there. After pausing for a moment, he said, Senior, it is getting late. I will return to my room to rest. I still have to rush to Wake City tomorrow morning. After saying this, Qin Yun stood up and left the room. At the same time, in a mountain range 1,000 kilometers away, a huge villa stood quietly in a small forest. This villa was the headquarters of the Xia family. It had already been several decades since the Xia family had been founded, and the first patriarch was already an Earth Saint Master. Because of his existence, the Xia family had become the greatest organization in a radius of 1,000 kilometers. The strength of the clan had also become more and more powerful. However, the headquarters of the Xia family was not located in the city. For the sake of convenience and freedom of movement, they had built their headquarters in the wilderness. They had only set up a branch of the Xia family in a second-class city a few dozen kilometers away. At this moment, in the main hall of the Xia family home, more than 20 people were sitting quietly in the main hall. In the middle of the hall, a stretcher covered by a white cloth was lying there, outlining the shape of a human body. The white cloth was stained with bright red blood, and the atmosphere in the main hall was heavy. At this moment, an old man in a white robe with a long beard walked out from the back of the hall and sat at the head of the table. Following the appearance of the old man, the people sitting in the row below all revealed a trace of respect in their eyes. Greetings to the old patriarch. Just as the old man sat down, the 20 or so people below all left their seats and knelt on one knee on the ground, kowtowing. The old man did not even look at them. His gaze was fixed on the stretcher in the center of the hall. His expression was somewhat complicated. After a while, the old man waved his hand and said, Everyone, sit down. Yes, old patriarch. At this moment, everyone finally dared to sit down again. Their expressions were very natural, without the slightest trace of displeasure. From this, it could be seen that the old man held a very high position in their hearts. The old man stared at the stretcher in the center of the hall for a long time. In the end, he let out a long sigh and stood up from his seat. He slowly walked to the side of the stretcher, squatted down, and gently removed the white cloth. A middle-aged man's face was exposed to the air. The middle-aged man's empty eyes were open. He had died with a grievance. His neck was dyed red with blood, and there was a very small wound. Chapter 259. As soon as the old man's words fell, the atmosphere in the hall became heavy. The 20-plus people seated below all looked at the old man with apprehension. As the upper echelons of the Xia family, they knew of the relationship between Uncle Lu and the old man. Now that Uncle Lu had been killed, they felt that it would be difficult to explain. The old man's gaze gradually became sharp, like a sharp sword sweeping across the crowd below. Everyone who was swept by the old man's gaze felt their hearts tremble. Old family head, I think you should ask young Master Xia about this matter. You will only be able to obtain the most detailed information from him. After a moment of silence in the hall, a middle-aged man with a face full of apprehension and sweat dripping down his forehead finally spoke up. Immediately call Xia Lu over. The old man's face was expressionless as he shouted in a deep voice. Immediately, one of them retreated and quickly brought in the eldest young master of the Xia family, Xia Lu. Young Master Xia's expression was somewhat fearful as he walked into the hall and knelt down. Grandson Xia Lu greets grandfather. When the old man's gaze landed on Xia Lu, his originally sharp gaze gradually became gentle. He slowly said, What exactly happened? Who killed your Uncle Lu? Grandfather, you must avenge Uncle Lu. Xia Lu's face suddenly became filled with grief. He immediately exaggerated the process of the conflict between Wake City and Jianshan, pushing all the blame onto the Kai family and Jianshan. He especially made it sound as if Jianshan was the cause of the incident. However, he did not hide anything about Jianshan's strength. He told the old man the truth about how he had killed Uncle Lu with a single sword strike. After Xia Lu finished speaking, The old man sitting at the head of the table fell silent. His brows slightly furrowed as his eyes flickered with uncertainty. After a moment of silence, the old man finally spoke. Lu, is what you said true? That person called Jianshan killed your Uncle Lu with a single sword strike. Grandfather, this time it is absolutely true. If you don't believe me, you can ask the guards. They also saw this scene with their own eyes. This person called Jianshan is really too much. Not only did he not put our Xia family in his eyes, he even insulted us. Grandfather, you must not let Jianshan off and avenge Uncle Lu. Xia Lu said with a face full of anger. His hatred for Jianshan was bone deep. Old family head, this person called Jianshan is really too much. If we do not do something about this matter, I'm afraid it will affect our Xia family. A middle-aged man sitting below the old man spoke. That's right, old family head. We definitely cannot let this matter rest. We must avenge Uncle Lu. Although they had heard that Uncle Lu was killed with a single sword strike, they were not worried in the slightest. Everyone was very confident in the old family head's strength. Now that Uncle Lu Zheng has been murdered, no matter how strong the other party is, no matter who they are, we cannot let this matter rest. Furthermore, this child, Uncle Lu Zheng, has done many things for the Xia family over the years and has made many contributions. I cannot let this child die in vain. Zheng Hua, immediately send a few smart people to Wake City to scout out the situation. Before we act, we must clearly understand the other party's strength. Yes, old family head. The next few days were relatively peaceful. The storm caused by the magical beast wave had gradually subsided and the entire city had returned to its former glory. Jianshan's high price of a search for Kendall's relatives also affected everyone's hearts. Almost everyone was moved by the high reward. Many people even used various methods to search openly and covertly, hoping to find a clue to claim the high reward. However, after a few days, Jianshan still did not obtain any useful information. On the other hand, there were many people who reported fake clues to get the reward money. In the past few days, Jianshan remained in the Kai clan to cultivate and did not leave. Only Commander Duo Li came by once a day to report the missing person notice to Jianshan. The three middle-aged men from the Magnificent Sky sect who came to the Kai clan previously also came to the Kai clan to look for Jianshan. They casually chatted with Jianshan on a few topics. As time passed, Jianshan and the three middle-aged men from the Magnificent Sky sect unknowingly became closer. Jianshan also heard some information about the Xia clan from the three of them. However, what made him feel at ease was that the Xia clan currently only had one Earth Saint Master. He had only broken through 10 years ago and his talent for cultivation was not outstanding. Currently, he was still in the second or third cycle and did not pose much of a threat to Jianshan. While cultivating, Jianshan also sent a few people from the Flame Mercenaries to the Xia clan. Although they could not observe every movement of the Xia clan, if a large group of people set off, they would still be able to discover them. In the past few days, Jianshan's strength had increased at a terrifying rate. Currently, his strength was close to that of an intermediate Great Saint Master. In the evening, a bare-chested young man rushed into the Kai clan. He did not stop at all along the way and hurriedly entered Jianshan's small courtyard. Captain, this morning, a large group of people from the Xia clan set off in the direction of Wake City. This person from the Flame Mercenaries reported while panting. Jianshan sat cross-legged on his bed, still maintaining his cultivation posture. He calmly looked at the young man in front of him and said, "How many of them came and when will they arrive?" There are a total of over 300 people. Because of the large number of people, their journey is rather slow. If they travel through the night, they will arrive at Wake City in the middle of the night. If they rest at night, they will probably arrive at noon tomorrow. The mercenary said with a serious expression. Jianshan expressionlessly waved his hand and said, "You can leave." After the mercenary left, Jianshan sat cross-legged on his bed and lowered his head in thought. He muttered, "With the Flame Mercenary's strength, fighting the Xia clan head-on is like throwing an egg at a rock. Instead of sitting there and waiting for death, why not take the initiative to attack and use the cover of the night to deal a heavy blow?" Only this way can the casualties be minimized. After the time it takes for a stick of incense to burn, Xianxia led the 7 great saint masters of the flame mercenaries and left Wake City on Class 2 magical beasts. However, just as Xianxia was a kilometer away from Wake City, he was stopped by 3 people wearing tight clothes and riding magical beasts. These 3 people were Qing Yun, Qing Mu, and Qing Yi from the Magnificent Sect. Hehe, Brother Xianxia, where are you going? Qing Yun, who was riding a Class 3 magical beast, smiled as he looked at Xianxia. Xianxia cupped his hands and smiled. So it's you, Brother Qing Yun. Since we are going out so late, we naturally have something to do. Qing Yun chuckled and said, if my guess is correct, Brother Xianxia is going to deal with the Xia clan. Xianxia nodded and did not deny it. Qing Yun's expression suddenly became serious and he continued, Brother Xianxia, it's not that I am looking down on you, but this time, the Xia clan has sent a lot of people. Among them, there are more than 10 great saint masters and the rest are all saint masters. Moreover, the Xia clan's old master has personally come. With just the 8 of you, even if you can defeat them, you will have to pay a heavy price. Hearing this, Xianxia frowned slightly. The Xia clan's lineup was indeed a little out of his expectations. Chapter 260. Xianxia's face was filled with astonishment. He then smiled and said, Brother Qing Yun is willing to help me. Of course, I am very grateful. However, what I am puzzled about is that Brother Qing Yun is not afraid of offending the Xia clan and causing trouble for the Huatian sect. Brother Xianxia, you may not know this, but although our Huatian sect and the Xia clan are very far apart, there have been some conflicts in the past. Later on, a few of our Huatian sect's disciples mysteriously disappeared. We guessed that it was most likely the Xia clan's doing, but we could not find any concrete evidence. As for the Xia clan, our Huatian sect has long wanted to exterminate them. However, once the war starts, although we are confident that we can exterminate the Xia clan, our Huatian sect will also suffer great losses. Therefore, this matter has been delayed. Now that Brother Xianxia wants to find trouble with the Xia clan, the 3 of you should lend you a hand, Qing Yun said calmly. Hehe, since that is the case, Xianxia will thank the 3 of you for your help. Xianxia's face was filled with joy. With the 3 of them, the difficulty of this trip would undoubtedly be reduced by a lot. Xianxia, Qing Yun, and the other 2 did not say much. They all rode their demonic beasts at full speed in the direction of the Xia clan. At this moment, it was already early in the morning, and the sky was already pitch black. Layers of dark clouds covered the sky, completely covering the full moon hanging high in the sky. Within the thick dark clouds, there was even the sound of rolling thunder that resounded through the sky from time to time. 300 kilometers away from Wake City, there were over 100 tents scattered around the area. Dozens of bonfires were slowly burning, and the bright light from the flames was like a naughty child jumping around, illuminating the surroundings. In the center of the campsite, a flag was raised high. Under the weak light of the flames, one could faintly see the large word, Xia, written on it. At this moment, most of the people in the campsite were already resting. Only a few people in charge of patrolling the tents, occasionally adding some firewood. Boom! A muffled sound of thunder suddenly exploded. The sound was very loud and deafening. The flash of lightning streaked across the sky, illuminating the entire night as if it was daytime. Shortly after, bean-sized raindrops began to pour down from the sky, quickly extinguishing the burning bonfire. The entire campsite was plunged into complete darkness. The bean-sized raindrops fell densely onto the ground, creating loud noises. What bad luck, to actually encounter such terrible weather. Several people in charge of patrolling cursed one after another as they crawled into their tents to take shelter from the rain. 500 meters away from the campsite, several figures were moving forward in the dark rain like ghosts. The loud sound of the rain hitting the ground completely covered the movement of these people. These people were none other than Xianxia's group that had set off from Wake City in the evening. When they were about 200 meters away from the campsite, Xianxia's group paused for a moment and gathered together to discuss the situation. Soon after, Jianshan carefully snuck into the campsite alone while the others waited in place. Jianshan arrived at the outermost tent and paused for a moment. Then, he carefully opened the tent and snuck in. The inside of the tent was pitch black and he couldn't even see his own fingers. He couldn't even see half a person's shadow. Jianshan relied on his powerful divine sense to detect the breathing of 3 people in the tent. Without any hesitation, the light wind sword appeared in his right hand and he stabbed out 3 times before immediately retreating. Jianshan was very confident in his swordsmanship. Just now, he had accurately stabbed the throats of the 3 people, instantly ending their lives without making a single sound. Jianshan carefully approached the rest of the tents, allowing the rain to fall on his body. Right now, he looked like a drowned rat. His clothes had long since been soaked and his entire body was dripping with rainwater. Originally, Jianshan had planned on fighting the Xia family, but the sudden rain made him change his plan. If he could assassinate a few of the Xia family members before the battle started, then it would greatly weaken the Xia family's strength. If he could assassinate the old patriarch of the Xia family who was already an Earth Saint Master, then these people wouldn't be much of a threat to Jianshan. However, Jianshan still didn't have the confidence to assassinate an Earth Saint Master. So right now, he only wanted to clean up a few small fries and weaken the Xia family's strength as much as possible. Although assassination wasn't Jianshan's forte, because the downpour completely covered up the movements caused by Jianshan's actions, no one noticed him. In just a short incense stick's worth of time, Jianshan had already killed over 100 people through assassination, accounting for 1/3 of the total number of people here. After another incense stick's worth of time, the number of people who had died at Jianshan's hands had already neared 200. Right now, more than half of the tents in the surroundings were completely filled with blood. Quite a lot of blood had dripped outside, slowly spreading in all directions along with the rain. A faint smell of blood drifted around the campsite. Right in the center, in a huge tent, the old patriarch of the Xia family sat cross-legged on a prayer mat with his eyes tightly shut in cultivation. His entire body didn't move at all, as if he was a stone statue. At this moment, the old patriarch's nose twitched slightly. Following that, his tightly shut eyes suddenly opened and 2 rays of light flashed through them. The old patriarch fiercely sniffed the air and slightly wrinkled his brows as he muttered, "Strange, why is there a faint smell of blood in the air?" As soon as his voice fell, the old patriarch's ears slightly twitched as if he had sensed something. His expression greatly changed as he immediately roared, "Everyone, wake up! There's an enemy!" Before his voice even fell, the old patriarch had already disappeared from the tent. Within the Xia family's tent, everyone who was still alive was startled awake. Not caring about the heavy rain outside, they all quickly rushed out of their tents. Since his tracks had been exposed, Jianshan no longer concealed himself. With the light wind sword in his hand, he immediately charged towards the people closest to him. He had to kill as many people as possible in the shortest amount of time. Jianshan immediately attacked with all his strength. In the darkness of the night, the light wind sword transformed into countless sword shadows that instantly enveloped several people and pierced their throats. The old patriarch of the Xia family also discovered Jianshan and immediately let out an angry roar. With a machete in his right hand, he charged towards Jianshan. At the same time, 200 meters away, the 7 great saint masters of the Raging Flame Mercenaries and the 3 new members of the Qingyun sect also quickly rushed over. The light wind sword in Jianshan's hand emitted a layer of hazy silver light. In the darkness of the night, it was extremely clear. A trace of intense and sharp sword qi was emitted, causing those who were closer to Jianshan to be able to clearly feel the sharpness of the light wind sword. Right now, everyone in the tent was rushing towards Jianshan. With the light wind sword in hand, Jianshan directly charged into the crowd of people and killed them, avoiding the attacks of the old patriarch of the Xia family. In a short period of time, close to 10 saint masters had died under Jianshan's sword. With the light wind sword's extreme speed, even great saint masters had to carefully avoid it. Furthermore, these people who were only saint masters had no way of retaliating against Jianshan's swift sword. Those who had their throats slit didn't even have time to scream before dying. Facing Jianchen, who had already charged into the crowd of people, the old patriarch of the Xia family was greatly restricted. In the darkness of the night, it was difficult to see Jianchen and the dozens of people from the Xia family. Even with the old patriarch's eyesight, it was difficult for him to distinguish them. Even if he caught sight of Jianchen's figure, it would only be a flash, making it difficult for him to make a move. Otherwise, he was afraid that he would injure his own people. Seeing the people of the Xia family fall one after another in the darkness of the night, the old patriarch of the Xia family was so angry that his chest began to heave up and down. He immediately roared, "Everyone, disperse!" Hearing this, the people of the Xia family all scattered, leaving Jianchen for the old patriarch to deal with. As the people of the Xia family scattered, the old patriarch finally locked onto Jianchen's figure. Without any hesitation, he immediately swung his machete towards Jianchen. Feeling the strong wind coming from behind him, Jianchen's eyes became even sharper. The light wind sword in his hand suddenly glowed with a faint purple and green light. Without any fear, Jianchen swung his sword towards the Xia family head's broadsword and slashed it towards the old master's broadsword. Chapter 261. Ding! The light wind sword and the machete collided with each other in midair, letting out a crisp sound of metal clashing against each other. A strong burst of qi exploded from the point of impact, causing the surrounding rain to scatter in all directions. The two saint weapons separated upon contact, and Jianchen's body uncontrollably retreated more than 10 steps before stabilizing himself. His right hand that was holding the light wind sword was trembling slightly. After all, the difference in strength between him and the Xia clan head was just too great. Furthermore, the azure and violet sword qi could only strengthen his attacks, but not his saint force. This time, after clashing with the Xia clan head, Jianchen's body had also been shaken. He felt the blood in his body churn, almost causing him to spit out blood. The difference between an Earth Saint Master and a Great Saint Master was like a chasm between heaven and earth. Even a battle skill would not be able to make up for it. If Jianchen's body was not as tough as a normal person's, then he would have been heavily injured. The Xia clan head's body violently trembled, and his face instantly became pale. A low groan came from his throat as a trace of blood uncontrollably flowed out from the corner of his mouth. The Xia family head's face was filled with shock. He immediately raised the holy weapon in his hand and examined it closely. Even though the sky was pitch black and he could not even see his own fingers in front of his face, he could still clearly sense that there was a gap about the size of a finger on the holy weapon in his hand. How is this possible? The Xia clan head couldn't believe it. At this moment, his heart was like a raging sea, unable to calm down as it was filled with fear. He was already an Earth Saint Master, and the saint weapon in his body had already become incomparably tough. It could be said that anyone below the strength of a Heaven Saint Master would not be able to cause any damage to his saint weapon even if they used a battle skill. But at this moment, his saint weapon was actually damaged, and there was even a small crack about the size of a finger. How could he not be shocked? Is he a Heaven Saint Master? The old patriarch of the Xia family was filled with fear. However, as soon as this thought appeared, he immediately dismissed it because he could feel that Jianchen was definitely much weaker than him when he clashed with Jiancchen. It was impossible for him to possess the strength of a Heaven Saint Master. What is going on? The patriarch's face was rather pale as blood flowed from his mouth. No matter how hard he tried, he could not understand how his saint weapon had been destroyed. Logically speaking, anyone who could destroy his saint weapon would be a peak expert of the Tianyuan continent. Killing him would be as easy as crushing an ant for someone like that. It was impossible for him to be forced back in a single strike. With his saint weapon damaged, the old patriarch of the Xia family was also heavily injured. Just as the old patriarch of the Xia family was filled with confusion, Jiancchen once again charged at him with the light wind sword. The light wind sword emitted a hazy silver sword qi that was like a bright lamp in the dark night. The only thing that could be seen was a flash of silver light. The sharp tip of the sword pierced through the large droplets of rain and stabbed towards the old patriarch's throat. Even though Jianchen's sword was extremely fast, the old patriarch of the Xia family was still an Earth Saint Master. Jianshan's speed was not as serious of a threat to the old patriarch of the Xia family as compared to a great Saint Master. Suppressing his injuries, the old patriarch of the Xia family suddenly released a layer of blue saint force from the machete in his right hand. Immediately, the surrounding rainwater seemed to be attracted by some mysterious force and quickly gathered around the machete in the old patriarch's hand. Circles after circles of rainwater began to revolve around the machete, forming a water dragon as thick as an arm that shot towards Jianshan. The light wind sword was wrapped in a layer of purple and green sword chi as it pierced through the water dragon, heading straight for the old patriarch's throat. The old patriarch of the Xia family's eyes flashed with a cold light. He did not believe in evil and once again swung his machete towards Jianshan. The machete carried a surge of saint force as it cut through the air like a bolt of lightning. The machete seemed to contain some kind of mysterious force as it cut through the air. As the machete chopped down, there was actually a faint pressure exerted on Jianshan's body. This time, the old patriarch of the Xia family directly used a battle skill. Every battle skill, once it was used, would carry a faint pressure. The higher the level of the battle skill, the stronger the pressure would be. However, not every battle skill had a shocking momentum when it was used. Some battle skills were completely integrated into the basic attack to be used. When it was used, there was not the slightest trace of smoke or fire. Every move and style carried an unfathomable mystery of the world, and had a strange and unpredictable power. The power was enormous. The old patriarch of the Xia family's machete's power was not ordinary. It was much stronger than the previous attack. When the two saint weapons collided, the powerful force sent Jianshan flying as he spat out a mouthful of blood. The old patriarch of the Xia family was not in a good condition either. At the same time, he spat out a mouthful of blood. His face was filled with fear and disbelief. On his saint weapon, there was another gap that was as thick as a finger. In this exchange, although he had sent Jianshan flying, there was now another gap on his saint weapon. His saint weapon is strange. Although he is not a Heaven Saint Master, his attack power is comparable to a Heaven Saint Master. I definitely cannot fight him head-on. The old patriarch of the Xia family quickly understood. At that moment, he looked at Jianshan with both shock and greed. He did not know what had caused Jianshan's attack power to become so strong. Was it a battle skill? Or a treasure? But no matter what it was definitely a priceless treasure. If he could obtain it, thinking of this, the old patriarch of the Xia family's heart began to beat rapidly. His pair of old eyes stared greedily at Jianshan. Jianshan immediately crawled up from the ground. Right now, his body was covered in mud. Ignoring his injuries, he once again rushed towards the old patriarch of the Xia family. Although he was heavily injured, the old patriarch's saint weapon had been damaged, so his injuries were even more severe than his own. As a result, compared to the old patriarch, Jianshan's injuries could only be considered light. Jianshan's light wind sword formed a dense cloud of sword images as it continuously attacked the old patriarch of the Xia family. By now, the old patriarch of the Xia family had already understood that Jianshan's personal strength was not strong, but his attack power definitely surpassed his own. Thus, he did not dare to receive Jianshan's attacks head-on. Instead, he completely avoided Jianshan's sword and attacked from the side. However, Jianshan's sword was originally focused on speed. Even though the old patriarch of the Xia family did his best to avoid Jianshan's saint weapon, he was still not as fast as Jianshan's sword. Furthermore, Jianshan also understood his only advantage over an Earth Saint Master, so he focused his attacks on the old patriarch's saint weapon in order to limit the old patriarch of the Xia family's strength. On the other side, the Huayan sects Qing Yun, Qing Mu, and Qing Shan, as well as the 7 great saint masters of the Flame Mercenaries, were already engaged in a great battle with the remaining people of the Xia family. However, the majority of the Xia family's 300 people had already been assassinated by Jianshan. Now, only a few great saint masters were left. Thus, even though Qing Yun and the Flame Mercenaries were at a disadvantage in terms of numbers, they were still able to hold on. This was especially the case for Qing Yun. His strength had already reached the peak of Great Saint Master, and his body flickered with the yellow light of Earth attributed Saint Force. Combined with his battle skills, he was able to beat the Saint Masters of the Xia family to the point where they could not even retaliate. Xianxia and the old patriarch of the Xia family exchanged over 100 blows. Even though the old patriarch of the Xia family did his best to avoid Xianxia's sword, he was still stabbed 3 times by the light wind sword, causing a total of 5 holes to appear on his saint weapon. As the damage to his saint weapon became more and more severe, the backlash that the old patriarch of the Xia family suffered also became more and more severe. If his saint weapon was destroyed by Xianxia, then not only would his powerful strength go to waste, his life would also be in danger. Who are you? Why did you sneak attack my Xia family? Could it be that my Xia family has some sort of enmity with you? The old patriarch of the Xia family finally couldn't hold it in anymore and loudly asked. Xianxia's attacks didn't stop as he coldly smiled. I'll let you die with a clear understanding. I am the person that your Xia family wants to deal with. The old patriarch's eyes narrowed as he stared at Xianxia with an incomparably solemn expression. Could it be that you are Xianxia? That's right. Xianxia didn't deny it. As soon as he finished speaking, his attacks became even more ferocious. Today, he had to kill the old patriarch of the Xia family to prevent future troubles. He definitely didn't want the flame mercenaries to be targeted by an Earth Saint Master. Xianxia, I wonder if we can sit down and have a good talk? The old patriarch of the Xia family had shown weakness. Now that he was at a disadvantage, if this continued, it would be extremely disadvantageous for him. Xianxia flatly refused, cutting off the old patriarch's thoughts of a temporary truce. The old patriarch's face sank when he heard that. He glared at the blurry face in the darkness and heavily said, Xianxia, the Xia fan, will remember what happened today. With that, the old patriarch no longer lingered on the battle. He turned around and fled. Xianxia immediately chased after him. Once the old patriarch of the Xia family was far away in the pouring rain, it would truly be very difficult to catch him. Although the old patriarch of the Xia family was heavily injured, he was still an Earth Saint Master after all. The abundant saint force in his body allowed him to quickly flee into the distance. The similarly heavily injured Xianxia simply couldn't catch up to him. Seeing the old patriarch gradually disappear into the distance, Xianxia's eyes flashed with the resplendent light. In the darkness of the night, they were like 2 fireflies emitting a weak light. Following that, the light wind sword in his right hand left Xianxia's hand and, as if it had transformed into an immortal sword, shot towards the old patriarch with unbelievable speed. Chapter 262. Under the heavy rain, vision was greatly affected. Adding on the fact that everyone in the Xia clan was busy fighting, no one noticed the death of the Xia clan's patriarch. After the light wind sword pierced through the Xia clan's patriarch's throat, it quickly flew back into Xianxia's hand. Xianxia held the light wind sword and immediately arrived in front of the Xia clan's patriarch. As expected of an Earth Saint Master, after having his throat pierced, he did not immediately die. His eyes were wide open and filled with disbelief. It was a pity that his throat had been pierced and he had lost the ability to speak. Otherwise, he would have asked the questions in his heart before he died. This was because he had clearly seen a sword pierce through his throat and fly through the air at an unimaginable speed without anyone controlling it. This scene had already exceeded the Xia clan's patriarch's understanding. The Xia clan's patriarch's life force was quickly draining away. Not long after, he slowly closed his eyes and left the world with a head full of questions. Thunder rumbled in the sky, and from time to time, there would be flashes of lightning that illuminated the entire sky. The heavy rain that was the size of beans slapped on the ground, creating loud, hua-hua sounds, which greatly affected everyone's hearing. Xianxia's body was dripping with rain and he had long since become soaked. He slowly squatted down and took off the Xia clan's patriarch's space belt and the space ring on his left hand. He then checked the patriarch's body to make sure that he did not miss anything important before leaving. As the previous patriarch of the Xia clan and the founder of the Xia clan, as well as an Earth Saint Master, the the Xia clan's patriarch would definitely have many valuable items on him. If Jianchen wanted to expand the flame mercenaries, he would need a large amount of money. After killing the old master of the Xia family, Jianchen did not stop there. He raised his sword and charged towards the rest of the Xia family members. Now that he had a grudge with the Xia family, he could not show mercy. The people present were the elites of the Xia family. If he killed them, the rest of the Xia family members would not be a threat. The people of the Xia clan held an absolute advantage. Apart from a few great Saint Masters, the rest of them all had the strength of a Saint Master. After such a short battle, the 7 people of the flame mercenaries were all injured. Even Qing Mu and Qing Shan from the Huatian sect had a few wounds on their bodies. Only Qing Yun, who had the Earth Attribute Saint force that specialized in defense and mastered battle techniques, was unscathed. He held back the few great Saint Masters of the Xia clan by himself, greatly reducing the pressure on the others. With the addition of Jianchen, the situation of the flame mercenaries, who were originally at a disadvantage, was instantly turned around. These Saint Masters could threaten ordinary great Saint Masters if they worked together, and could even kill them. However, in Jianchen's eyes, they were just a group of helpless lambs waiting to be slaughtered. Jianchen charged into the group of Xia clan members. The light wind sword turned into a sky full of sword shadows, instantly stabbing out several times. Every strike accurately sliced through their throats. Before they could even react, their lives had been mercilessly taken. Under Jianchen's extremely fast killing speed, the remaining people of the Xia clan rapidly decreased in number. Not long after, they were all wiped out. Not a single person was left alive. Jianchen's performance caused Qing Yun and the other 2 from the Huatian sect to be secretly shocked. The 300 people of the Xia clan that had come this time, including the old patriarch, who was an Earth Saint Master, had all been killed. As for Jianchen's side, only the members of the Flame Mercenaries and Qing Shan and Qing Mu had suffered heavy injuries. They were all covered in blood, and their bodies were covered in wounds of various sizes. Fresh blood continuously flowed from them. Brother Jianchen, is the old patriarch of the Xia clan dead? Qing Yun let out a long sigh and asked Jianchen. As the battle between Jianchen and the old patriarch of the Xia family was still some distance away, he was unable to see the situation on the other side in the pitch-black night. Furthermore, his battle with the old patriarch of the Xia family was extremely stressful, so he was unable to divert his attention to observe the situation on the other side. Jianchen smiled, but no one could see the smile clearly in the dark night. He said, "Don't worry, I've already dealt with that old bastard." Cold sweat faintly appeared on the foreheads of the 3 from the Huan sect when they heard that. They were shocked by Jianchen's strength once again. They never thought that he would be able to kill an Earth Saint Master with a battle skill in such a short amount of time. Moreover, according to the information they had gathered, the old patriarch of the Xia clan was at least a 2nd cycle Earth Saint Master, perhaps even close to the 3rd cycle. Fortunately, our Huayun sect didn't provoke Jianchen like the Xia clan did. It really isn't worth it to offend such a powerful genius for a Class 5 monster core, Qin Yunxin secretly thought. Jianchen arrived before the people of the Flame Mercenaries and stared at them in concern. He asked, "How are your injuries? Are there any major problems?" These people were the only ones who could be considered experts in the Flame Mercenaries. In his heart, Jianchen really didn't want to see any accidents happen to any of them. "We're all heavily injured, but we won't die." Duo Kangqiang stood up and said weakly, "Brother Jianchen, their injuries are indeed very heavy. I think we should immediately return and invite a Radiant Saint Master to heal them," Qing Yun suggested. Jianchen nodded and immediately cleaned up the battlefield. He took the 300 or so space belts from the Xia clan guards and put them into his own pouch. He then led the heavily injured people of the Flame Mercenaries back to Wake City in the rain. "Brother Jianchen, there are no Radiant Saint Masters in Wake City. Even if there were, it would be very difficult to find one. You should take them back first. I'll go to a nearby 2nd-class city and invite a Radiant Saint Master over," Qing Yun suddenly said. "Then I'll have to trouble Brother Qing Yun." Jianshan didn't refuse and clasped his hands in thanks. "Ha, brother Jianshan, there's no need to be so courteous." Qing Yun clasped his hands and then left alone. Qing Shan and Qing Mu were still heavily injured, so they followed Jianshan back to Wake City to heal. Due to their heavy injuries, the speed at which they returned was much slower than when they came. Jianshan's group traveled through the night and finally arrived at Wake City at dawn. In the Kai clan's courtyard, the 7 great Saint Masters of the Raging Flame mercenary group and Qing Shan and Qing Mu of the Huatian sect had already been properly settled. Their wounds were smeared with top-grade healing panaceas and some medicinal pills that were specially used to treat internal injuries, temporarily stabilizing their injuries. Chapter 263. Qing Yun directly brought the white-robed young man to Jianshan. He said, "Brother Jianshan, I've already invited a radiant Saint Master over. Let's go heal them right now." Jianshan studied the young man that Qing Yun had brought over. However, the young man's arrogance made him extremely displeased. However, due to his noble status as a radiant Saint Master and some basic etiquette, Jianshan still clasped his hands with a smile. He said, "Esteemed Saint Master, I really do feel rather apologetic for inviting you over from so far away. Once my brothers are healed, I will definitely thank you properly." The young man glanced at Jianshan and a sliver of disdain appeared in his eyes. With his status as a radiant Saint Master, especially one with great talent, he really did look down on these insignificant mercenaries, especially one who was much younger than him. Only Earth Saint Masters could make him feel respect. "You can't speak carelessly. I'm not your friend. Lead the way. Once the injured people are healed, I have to return immediately. I don't have that much time to waste here," the young man snorted coldly and said arrogantly. Both Jianshan and Qing Yun frowned slightly when they heard that. Although radiant Saint Masters possessed great statuses, the young man before them was just a little too arrogant. However, they still needed his help after all, so Jianshan and Qing Yun were not petty people. The two of them said nothing and brought the young man to where the people of the Flame Mercenaries were resting. Duo Kang's group of 7 from the Flame Mercenaries and Qing Shan Qing Mu from the Huatian sect all had their own rooms. They were not very far from each other. Jianshan first brought the Radiant Saint Master to Qing Mu's room. Qing Mu was currently lying on the bed, naked. His eyes were closed and his face was pale. He only wore a pair of briefs that covered his most important part. His entire body was wrapped in white bandages that had already been dyed red with blood. The young Radiant Saint Master frowned deeply when he saw how miserable Qing Mu was. He then went up and checked Qing Mu's wounds. He coldly said, "He's very heavily injured, so the cost of healing him is very expensive. I hope you can be mentally prepared. Otherwise, you won't be able to pay when the time comes." A sharp light flashed through Jianshan's eyes. Anyone who heard the young Radiant Saint Master's words would feel extremely displeased. Even Qing Yunfen frowned deeply. His gaze towards the young Radiant Saint Master was filled with hostility. Bang! Suddenly, a heavy sound rang out. The man who had come with the young Radiant Saint Master took a heavy step forward and blocked the young man's back. He glared at Jianshan and Qing Yun and said with a deep voice, "Esteemed Saint Master Assisi is one of the most outstanding members of our Radiant Saint Master Union. If you don't want to become enemies with our union, then don't show any hostility. Otherwise, I won't hold back and will report this matter to the union." Qing Yun and Jianshan's expressions changed slightly when they heard the man's words. The Radiant Saint Master Union was an extremely special organization on the Tianyuan continent. Just like the Mercenary Union, it was not restricted by any country. The Radiant Saint Master Union was where all the Radiant Saint Masters on the Tianyuan continent gathered. At the same time, they provided protection to some of the Radiant Saint Masters, so they possessed a supreme status on the Tianyuan continent. At the same time, the Union possessed a large number of fighters. They were so powerful that even the 7 great empires on the Tianyuan continent were unwilling to provoke them. However, no matter who they were or how powerful they were, anyone who provoked the Radiant Saint Master Union would not be able to live for long. Xianxia and Qingyun feared the Radiant Saint Master Union from the bottom of their hearts. They didn't dare to offend them in the slightest. This was because the Radiant Saint Master Union was not like the Huayan sect of the Jessan Kingdom. Their influence was spread across the entire continent. Once they became enemies with the Radiant Saint Master Union, they would find them and kill them no matter where they went. At the very least, there had never been anyone who managed to survive after offending the Radiant Saint Master Union. Go ahead and heal him. I can still afford the cost, Xianxia said emotionlessly. The young man sneered when he heard that. A sliver of craftiness flashed through his eyes and he said, "His wounds are extremely severe. It'll take me a day or two at the very least to heal him. It'll be very taxing on me, so the cost will be a little higher." The young man glanced at Xianxia and continued, "It'll cost 50 purple coins." "What? 50 purple coins?" Xianxia's face suddenly changed as he cried out in shock. This price had nothing to do with whether it was expensive or not. This was clearly a scam. 50 purple gold coins. Heavens, you are too black-hearted. Qingyun was a little dumbfounded as he exclaimed. His injuries are already very serious. Even with the best healing medicine, it will take him 1 or 2 months to fully recover. Moreover, no one can say for sure if there will be any side effects. I'm already being cheap by charging you 50 purple coins. The young Radiant Saint Master said with a straight face, but inside he was secretly laughing. He was quite familiar with Wake City, and it was no exaggeration to say that he was the only Radiant Saint Master in Wake City. Moreover, the Kai clan had a certain amount of influence in Wake City, so they didn't lack money. With this information in hand, the young Radiant Saint Master was able to make such a huge demand. Xianxia quickly calmed down. He looked at the young man indifferently and said, "All right, 50 purple coins it is. You can start the treatment immediately. I hope your ability is worth 50 purple coins." Xianxia's voice was extremely calm, without the slightest hint of emotion. "Wait, Brother Xianxia, this is just too expensive. Although they're all heavily injured, it'll only cost 5 purple coins at most to invite a 3rd-rank Radiant Saint Master to treat them," Qingyun said from the side. This price was too high, and he didn't want to lose out. Xianxia waved his hand and said, "It's fine. It's just some money. As long as Brother Qing Mu can recover as soon as possible, this amount of money is nothing." Hearing Xianxia's words, Qing Mu sighed and didn't say anything else. The young Radiant Saint Master smiled and extended his hand in front of Xianxia, saying, "Pay up first." Xianxia snorted disdainfully and took out a large amount of purple coins from his spatial belt, saying, "A total of 9 people need to be treated. Here are 450 purple coins. I hope your ability is worth this price." Chapter 264. After 7 days of treatment, the young Radiant Saint Master had finally healed the 7 injured members of the Flame Mercenaries and the 2 from the Magnificent Sect. During these 7 days, other than occasionally chatting with Qingyun, Xianxia basically spent the rest of his time cultivating in his room. After these 7 days of cultivation, with the help of the sword spirits, Xianxia's cultivation speed increased to the level of an intermediate Great Saint Master by several dozen times. The saint force in his body had more than doubled compared to a primary Great Saint Master, and his battle prowess was even greater than before. During this time, Xianxia had also gone to the city lord's mansion to inquire about the search for Kendall's family. However, the results left him very disappointed. Under the circumstances where the city lord had searched the entire city and even posted a high reward, there was still no news of Kendall's family. Xianxia's last wish had become the only thing he could not let go of. However, he did not have any information about Kendall's family, so it was very difficult for him to find them. Right now, Xianxia could only worry helplessly. There was nothing else he could do. He could only expand his search area and slowly search. The news of the Xia clan's 300 men being killed 300 li away from Wake City also spread like wildfire within Wake City. As the number 1 power within a 1,000 li radius, the Xia clan's influence was extremely large. This news spread like wildfire, and even some of the cities around Wake City received the news, causing quite a commotion. Now, whether it was Wake City or the surrounding cities, in the streets and alleys, as well as in some of the restaurants, one could hear mercenaries and merchants discussing this matter with great interest. I wonder who the Xia clan has offended. They actually killed 300 people. The Xia clan is the #1 power in this area. They are very powerful. Now that so many people have been killed, the Xia clan will definitely make a big fuss. That's for sure. Within a radius of 1,000 kilometers, no one can challenge the dignity of the Xia family. I've heard that the previous patriarch of the Xia family was an Earth Saint Master. Who can defeat him here? I don't think so. It's true that the Xia clan is the #1 power in this area, but this is only limited to this area. What if there are foreign experts? Maybe the Xia clan has offended some foreign expert, resulting in this disaster. Everyone was discussing animatedly with different opinions. However, the majority of them believed that the Xia family would definitely turn out in full force to regain their respect. After all, the Xia family was a force to be reckoned with within a radius of 1,000 miles. If the Xia family wanted to maintain their position, they had to do so. However, what happened next was that the Xia clan actually did not do anything. They did not even say a single word. They seemed to have chosen to swallow the humiliation of the 300 deaths. Early in the morning, Qin Yun brought Qin Mu and Qin Shan, who had already recovered from their injuries, to Jianxin's residence. Brother Jianxin, we have been out for quite some time. This time, we have specially come to say goodbye to you. Because there are some matters in the sect, we have to rush back, Qin Yun said. Jianxin cupped his hands and smiled. All good things must come to an end. Brother Qin Yun, take care. There will be plenty of time in the future. We will definitely meet again in the future. Hehe, that's true. Brother Jianxin, if you have time in the future, you must come visit my Huatian sect. Qin Yun cupped his hands and smiled. Of course. If I have time in the future, I will definitely visit the Huatian sect, Jianxin said. Qin Yunxin suddenly thought of something and said, Oh, I almost forgot. Brother Jianxin, in half a year's time, it will be the mercenary pageant that is held once every 50 years. This mercenary pageant is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. You must participate. If you miss this opportunity, then you will never have the qualifications to participate in the mercenary pageant again. Mercenary pageant. Jianxin's eyes revealed a trace of doubt. He said, Brother Qin Yun, what is this mercenary pageant? Can you explain it to me in detail? Hearing this, Qin Yun's eyes revealed a trace of surprise. He did not think that Jianxin did not even know about the mercenary pageant. However, he still smiled and said, It seems that Brother Jianxin does not know about the mercenary pageant. Alright, then I will explain it to you in detail. Speaking until here, Qin Yun paused and said, The mercenary pageant is a pageant held by the Mercenary Union of the Tianyuan continent for all the outstanding mercenaries in the world. The location of the pageant is the headquarters of the Mercenary Union, Mercenary City. Although it is called the mercenary pageant, it is actually just a competition between mercenaries. However, this competition is only held once every 50 years, and the mercenaries who can participate must be under the age of 50. As a result, not everyone can participate in the mercenary pageant. If you were born in a bad time, you would not have the qualifications to participate in the mercenary pageant. As a result, anyone who can participate in the mercenary pageant that is held once every 50 years has a trace of luck and opportunity. Every time the mercenary pageant is held, it is extremely popular. It has attracted almost all the genius mercenaries on the continent. As long as you can enter the top 100, you will receive a large amount of money as well as a medal of honor from the Mercenary Union. If you can enter the top 10, the rewards will be even more generous. It is said that as long as you enter the top 10, you will be able to enter the armory of Mercenary City and choose a heaven-tier cultivation method. If you enter the top 3, not only will you be able to enter the armory and choose a heaven-tier cultivation method, you will also be able to choose a heaven-tier battle skill to cultivate. A sliver of desire flashed through Qin Yun's eyes when he mentioned the heaven-tier cultivation method and battle skill. He seemed to covet them. Whether it was the cultivation method or battle skill, they were enough to cause a storm of blood on the Tianyuan continent. Their value could not be measured with money. The top 3 ranks of the mercenary pageant are each more generous than the last. I heard that not only will the champion be able to choose a battle skill from the armory, he will also be able to cultivate in the sacred grounds of Mercenary City for half a year. Qin Yun let out a long sigh when he reached there. He continued, the sacred grounds of Mercenary City are sacred grounds in the hearts of all the experts in the world. Although I don't know what benefits there are in there, it is a place that even peak experts like Heaven Saint Masters yearn for. It is said that quite a few saint rulers have stayed in the sacred grounds of the Mercenary Union. Qin Yun let out a long sigh and sighed emotionally. Those are saint rulers, supreme saint rulers. If even existences like them stay in that place, it's more than enough to show just how sacred the sacred grounds of Mercenary City are. Jianshan's heart began to thump uncontrollably when he heard that. He was tempted by the rewards Qin Yun had mentioned. Let alone the sacred grounds of Mercenary City, just the Heaven-tier battle skill had moved his heart. Although the Heaven-tier battle skill might not be suitable for him, he could still donate it to Changyang Prefecture. Changyang Prefecture already had a Heaven-tier cultivation method. They just lacked a Heaven-tier battle skill. Chapter 265. Jianshan lowered his head and pondered for a moment before asking, Brother Qin Yun, you said that only mercenaries under the age of 50 can participate in this gathering. Then how strong are the strongest mercenaries participating? Qin Yun pondered for a moment before replying. According to the information passed down from the past mercenary gatherings, the top 10 mercenaries are basically all Earth Saint Masters. After all, breaking through to the Earth Saint Master realm is just too difficult. Moreover, it is extremely dangerous. To be able to become an Earth Saint Master before the age of 50 is already considered an outstanding talent. Then are there any Heaven Saint Masters participating in the mercenary gatherings? Jianshan continued to ask. With the assistance of the Azure Sword spirits, the threat of Earth Saint Masters to him had decreased by a lot. In his heart, Earth Saint Masters were not undefeatable. The ones that truly made Jianshan feel pressured were Heaven Saint Masters. That's impossible. Qin Yun shook his head and said, Heaven Saint Masters are already peak experts on the Tianyuan continent. How can they be so easy to cultivate? Although there are people who can become Heaven Saint Masters before the age of 50, such geniuses are rarely seen on the Tianyuan continent. Moreover, even if there really is someone who can become a Heaven Saint Master before the age of 50, they may not necessarily have the qualifications to participate in the mercenary gatherings. This is because the time difference between the mercenary gatherings and the mercenary gatherings eliminates the qualifications of the majority of cultivation geniuses. Hearing this, Jianshan nodded in agreement. Qin Yun was right. Not all genius mercenaries could participate in the mercenary gatherings. The mercenary gatherings were only held once every 50 years, and only those under the age of 50 had the qualifications to participate. If a genius could really become a Heaven Saint Master before the age of 50, if they were born a few years before or a few years after the mercenary gatherings, then they would miss out on the mercenary gatherings. At least until now, there had never been anyone who could become a Heaven Saint Master before the age of 30 or 40 on the Tianyuan continent. Next, Jianshan asked Qin Yun about the details of the mercenary conference. Although Qin Yun had only mentioned a portion of the rewards for the top 10 rankers, this had already moved Jianshan's heart. After sending off Qin Yun and the other two, Jianshan immediately summoned Duo Kong and the other Saint Masters and asked them about the mercenary convention. However, the information they obtained was very limited. Apart from the fact that there was a mercenary convention, they didn't obtain any other valuable information. They didn't even know as much as Qin Yun. Leader, participating in the mercenary conference once every 50 years is not bad, but the mortality rate is also very high. It is said that less than 10% of the people who participate in the mercenary conference will survive, Charles said in a dignified tone. I've also heard that there are quite a few people who have reached the level of Earth Saint Master in the mercenary conference. They are very powerful, Duo Kong said sternly. Leader, if you want to participate in the mercenary conference, You must consider it carefully. The rewards are extremely generous, but the mortality rate is indeed quite high. At the same time, basically all the talented mercenaries on the continent have gathered in the mercenary conference this time. Some of them are talented and have good conditions. They can reach the level of Earth Saint Master before the age of 50. Some of them are born with extraordinary backgrounds and have even grasped battle skills. They are extremely powerful. Emotion spoke with an extremely calm tone. In their eyes, the mercenary conference that was held once every 50 years didn't have any value as it wasn't something that they could participate in with their level. That was a stage that belonged to the experts of the mercenary world. Of course I know that the competition there will be extremely intense. Do you know where Mercenary City is? If you do, then tell me. Xianxia calmly said. When he heard Qing Yun mention the rewards of the mercenary conference, Xianxia had already secretly made up his mind. He had to participate in the mercenary conference because a heaven-tier battle skill was just too tempting. 3 days later, Xianxia finished arranging everything and left Wake City by himself. As for the members of the Raging Flame mercenary group, Xianxia gave them a mission. They were to temporarily stop hunting magical beasts to earn money and focus on all kinds of mercenary missions in order to quickly raise the level of the Raging Flame mercenary group. Before he left, Xianxia left the Flame mercenaries with several thousand purple coins and a few Class 2 monster cores that he had no use for. It was for the mercenaries' daily expenses and to buy some necessities. The Flame mercenaries were currently in the process of development, so they needed to invest a large amount of money. Because Duo Kong and the others all had leadership abilities, Xianxia was very reassured to leave the Flame mercenaries in their hands. Xianxia rode a Class 2 magical beast mount that was adept at running. After traveling for an entire day, he had already traveled over 1,000 miles. Only in the evening did he finally stop at a second-rank city called Blue Ridge City. After entering the city, Xianxia first found an inn to stay in for the time being. He then went to the dining area on the first floor and casually ordered a few dishes to appease his hunger. The sky was gradually darkening, and it was already past dinner time. Thus, there weren't many people eating on the first floor of the inn. There were only 20 or so empty tables in the large space, and a few waiters were busying himself all over the place. Suddenly, a large group of armored soldiers escorting carriages filled with large metal chests stopped outside the inn. Following that, several middle-aged men in armor walked in with majestic steps. On the right side of their armor was an identical emblem. The emblem on the emblem was actually a miniature version of the national emblem of the Blue Wind Kingdom. "Waiter, hurry up and bring us some food. Prepare some more tables for us," one of the middle-aged men in armor called out as soon as he walked into the inn. The other middle-aged men swept their sharp gazes over the few remaining guests in the inn. "All right, sirs, please take a seat. We will immediately bring the best wine and meat. We guarantee that sirs will be satisfied." When the waiter saw the emblems on their chests, his expression abruptly changed. He didn't dare to be negligent in the slightest and immediately welcomed them with a face full of enthusiasm. The middle-aged men in armor didn't say anything else. They directly walked to a table and sat down. Afterwards, people in armor continuously walked in from outside. There were around 100 people in total, and the entire dining hall was filled to the brim. Everyone was silent and didn't say anything. They seemed very disciplined. With the arrival of this group of people, some of the diners who were still chatting in the inn also quieted down in an instant. Although the entire first floor of the inn was filled with people, it was strangely quiet and the atmosphere was somewhat strange. Welcome to Immortal Cultivation Audiobooks, your gateway to the mystical world of Xianxia. Dive into legendary tales of martial arts, spiritual growth, and immortal ascension. Here, we bring you full-length English audiobooks of the best Wuxia and Xianxia stories, from young prodigies to ancient sect wars. Perfect for fans of Against the Gods, martial world, and tales of demons and gods.